So in this video, we are solving our specimen paper, question number 2 of 2023. This is a very good question because it will help us understand how the 20 mark question is going to be different from the 25 mark questions that we are doing. A lot of students are asking about what are the details that we need to give, what are the various sort of aspects in a 20 mark question that we need to focus upon, and so on. So this is going to be where I'll try to sort of do this question in a very thorough manner to make you understand what are the various ways or strategies and techniques that you can sort of adopt when writing a 20 mark question. So whenever we are solving any question, be it a micro, macro question, or a AS or A2 question, this is a A2 question, right? But we need to look at key terms. So for us, the key terms here is, number one is your positive externalities. That's a key term to remember. The second key term to remember here is market failure, and also the idea that what is the government intervention doing. So we'll start off by first talking about positive externalities. So what are positive externalities? Positive externalities are when the consumption of or production of a good produces a benefit to the society which is greater than the one received by the consumer or producer. So anytime a consumption or production of a good results in the benefit to not only the consumer but to a third party, which is the society, it results in basically generating a positive externality. And the market failure here is that the goods are under provisioned. Under provision means under consumed or underproduced. Why? Because the society would like to have more of these goods, but because the third party sort of benefit is not factored in by either the producer or the consumer, therefore these goods are under consumed. The next part of the discussion will be to talk about examples. Now, this is an important part that you need to remember because a lot of times you don't give examples, and the examiner would like to see whether you know the application of the concept as well. So let's talk about the application or example now. So I can give two examples. One is the example of positive externality on the consumption side. For example, merit goods like education is a positive externality. Why? Because it generates this externality in terms of like they not only benefiting the consumer or the individual who decides to demand education in terms of higher productivity or higher income, but also the society benefits in terms of that educated person to be a better decision maker. Because of his higher income, there could be more tax revenue, and it could also be beneficial for the society in terms of even GDP. Now, the production side of any positive externality could be, production externality that happens, for example, through a plant nursery, where the producer, the plant nursery owner, when he has plants to sell to the society, he's generating positive externality in terms of lower sort of pollution, more oxygen into the environment, cleaning up the environment, and so on. So once we talk about the examples of the consumption and production externalities that can take place, we will talk about some of the diagrams. So the diagram is also important because examiner one has asked us to draw a diagram, but you can draw two diagrams. You can draw as many diagrams as you want. I'll show you two diagrams. I'll show you both the consumption diagram and production diagram. You could stick with one diagram in your answer, but let's say if this is my education's sort of diagram, which has a consumption positive externality. We say demand is my marginal private benefit, supply is my marginal private cost, and in the case of education, demand should be much more, which means that the marginal social benefit must be greater than the marginal private benefit, because the marginal social benefit is equal to the marginal private benefit plus the positive externality. And this positive externality would mean that our demand should be, the desirable demand should be Q star, and therefore this Q star minus Q naught is your under provision. There's also another aspect that we can talk about here, that if you look at this at this point A, at this point A, this is the amount of positive externality that is not taken advantage of by the consumer, because of course the society is under sort of consuming this good, But at point C, we say there is no externality because the social benefit should be equal to marginal social cost. Remember that education has no externality on the supply side, it's on the demand side. So the socially desirable quantity should be C. As a result of that, all of this is our deadweight loss. So there is a deadweight loss to the society because of underconsumption. So triangle ABC is my deadweight loss due to under provisioning or under consumption of this good. If you look at it from the production side, guys, supply should be much more. Why? Because for plant nursery, you want more of them for the pollution to be lower in the sort of environment or society. So supply should be here. My supply should be your marginal social cost. Now remember that when the cost is lower, supply curve shift to the right. So marginal social cost is equal to marginal private cost minus your positive externality. So what we're saying is this that the social cost is much lower to society and the quantity that should be produced is Q star. Because we produce only at point A, we have an externality, a positive externality, which is not taken care of, equal to AB. And therefore, all of this is the positive externalities that are lost because we are not producing at point C, which is socially desirable, where marginal social cost is equal to marginal social benefit. So, as a result of that, triangle ABC is the deadweight loss. Now, you can give all this information, or you can just draw the diagram and talk about how social cost is less than private cost in the case of production externality, for example, like a plant nursery, and therefore this is my under provisioning happening, Q naught minus Q star. So both of these cases are showing us our externalities which are positive, and because of demand to be not enough or supply to be not enough, there are basically social welfare or deadweight losses. Now, how can government intervene? And we can say the government can intervene in many ways. They can, for example, increase the demand and or supply of these goods, and this can be done by, for example, subsidies or provision of information or direct provision. So you can talk about any two, because 20 marks means 40 minutes. So you got to be sort of mindful of that. So let's say if the government decides to give a subsidy. So if the government decides to give a subsidy, and we have a case of, let's say, uh, education, where the social benefit is more than the private benefit. So demand is my marginal private benefit, right? Supply is your marginal private cost, and let's say it's also equal to marginal social cost because there's no externality. So when you give a subsidy, what happens? The subsidy will result in supply curve to shift to the right. So if the government gives a subsidy equal to the externality, this is what I wrote here. If the subsidy is equal to externality, supply will go up, and this rise of supply will mean we can get our socially desirable quantity to be produced. So for example, if I give a subsidy equal to externality, my supply curve will shift to the right, something like this, and I can have the new supply curve S dash, which is equal to marginal private cost plus subsidy, or rather I should say minus subsidy, because I am saying it will reduce my cost, so minus subsidy. And the idea is the subsidy will reduce the cost of production and therefore result in supply curve to shift to the right and the socially desirable quantity to be produced. Now, here the idea is that we are saying the subsidies equal to externalities. So now is the time to do evaluation, because if you look at the question, the evaluation of these policies are where you get your A star, because you then now are looking at, okay, what are the pros and cons of these policies. So, well, the problem with subsidy is that government doesn't know the size of the externality, and therefore they may under or over subsidize. Like, not knowing the amount of subsidy means they may not know how much subsidy to give. They may give too much or too little. Number one. Number two is subsidies are costly and there is an opportunity cost. So a subsidy to one good would mean less subsidy to any other sector. Also, if you do not cut down on subsidies in other sectors, you may need to then increase your tax revenue, so there will be a higher tax burden. So to three evaluation point could be given. You can say subsidies are also has an advantage that subsidy sort of uses market forces of demand and supply. So that's one advantage of it. And subsidies, another advantage is that the subsidies can basically make the good more affordable. So it could be something that can be benefited by even low income consumers. Also, it's cheaper than direct provision. If you end up doing a direct provision, then you're giving everyone for free. So it's cheaper than your direct provision. On the other hand, when you look at other methods, the second method we can talk about is provision of information, which is done through advertising. Now, when you look at advertising, you're trying to sort of make sure that you try to show people or try to convey people the benefit of the good in order to increase the consumption. So you are trying to automatically generate higher demand by making people become more sort of aware of the benefit of the good. The problems with advertising are also there. Number one, it is costly. Number two, it will only be effective if the message is effective. So, how persuasive is the message will determine whether the marketing will work or not. And thirdly, the outcome is uncertain because if the message isn't going to be strong, the demand will be less. If the message is going to be strong, the demand can be more. So, we don't know, we can't predict the outcome of this from right away. Then comes this other, which is called direct provision. The direct provision is where the government decides to provide the good. For example, the government may say, we will provide all the schooling for everyone. Now, the problem with this, of course, you can foresee that it is going to be costly or expensive. There is an opportunity cost, as we have pointed out earlier in the subsidy also. And number three uh, is that the direct provision can only work if the government also then regulate and make it mandatory for people to attend schools, which is probably what they go about doing it. Because when you do direct provision, you also want the demand to go up. You don't want the resources to be wasted. Now, the last bit here is conclusion, because we need to conclude your answer. So, the question is saying, with the help of a diagram, assess the view that government intervention can be used successfully to correct market failure caused by positive externality. And your conclusion will be that while the government can solve the positive externality issue through various intervention, there will be some challenges which the government needs to consider, which can result in the effectiveness of government policies to be low. So, guys, this is an answer, a very sort of comprehensive answer for a question which is for 20 marks. A lot of you have been asking about it, like how do we go about it. So I thought I should share that with you guys so that you have a fair understanding of how much to write, and you can manage this within 40 minutes, which is dedicated for 20 marks. So good luck, and God bless.